female against you.
How is he?
I don't know.
Kevin, how's he
That's
going to
the
use
obvious.
that against me?
I don't think he'll use that against you.
That'd be a
He's
losing
not,
proposition.
that would, I don't see him using it.
What could he use against you?
That would be his political downfall right there.
He may say, I'm inexperienced.
Okay.
That would be
So
something.
you answer that.
That he may say that I'm inexperienced.
Will you address that?
Absolutely. I think it's, first of all, inexperience, it depends on what you view as experience, okay? Let's talk about the people in the race right now. The difference between the Senate and the House. People ask me, why are you running for the U.S. House? Why is this? Because this is my fight. This is where I'm most experienced and where I'm more qualified to serve. The Senate used to be elected by the state legislature, right? And they're supposed to represent the state. That's what they're supposed to do. Who's supposed to represent? Who's the House supposed to represent?
The people.
The people. That is where I've worked for almost a decade. I've worked where the rubber meets the road for a decade. Now, when it comes to Matheson, that type of experience is exactly what we don't want. We don't want the experience of increased debts. We don't want the experience of a no vote for Obamacare, a no vote for a repealing of Obamacare, excuse me, and being able to jump out of a vote for Obamacare because the Democrats realized they had enough votes, so they didn't need his vote. We don't want the experience of the stimulus. We don't want cash for clunkers. That's what we're going up against. So if that's the experience you want, thank you, but no thank you. That's how I answer that question. I am suited for the House more than anybody else that's in this race because I know my job is to make Washington smaller and make people bigger. That's what I've tried to do for 8 years.
As a follow-up of my question,
I'll get you next.
the first thing you should say, the first public statement you make once you are a candidate against Matheson is exactly what you said here. First thing you said was, I wasn't elected mayor because I'm black and female. And put those words right out in front of the public.
I did, he's got it on tape now.
My name's Cam Mosier, if you want.
Thank you.
Back to your experience with Saratoga Springs. Obviously, that was not an easy task to take the kind of runaway philosophy that a lot of cities had, as well as the federal government. Back in Washington right now, part of the reason why we're not getting anything done is because nobody's talking, nobody's going to sit down at the table and try to work things out. It's my way or the highway.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to approach that differently so that you can bring those different groups together to make some change?
Okay, great question. I believe that there's a difference between cooperation and compromise. There are certain things that I will not compromise. I will not compromise the document that I've sworn to uphold. Will not do it, will not ever do it. That document is there to protect us from rulers and policymakers. And the other thing, I will not compromise my principles, things that I believe in, right? So, but Marco Rubio is a great example. When the super committee was going at each other like this, no one would move, no one would do anything. He came to the table and said, look, tell me what you all agree to. Put it on the table. They did, and he looked at it and said, great, we're passing it. That's actually moving forward. That's actually getting the business of the people done, the work of the people done. That's what, if somebody's got a good idea, you think I'm just going, just because it comes from one side or the other, that I'm going to sit there and say, I'm sorry, that doesn't work? That's what we don't want, right? Paul Ryan comes up with a plan and all of a sudden you see commercials with him taking a senior and throwing him off the cliff. That's what you see. No one even really looks at it and says, hey, let's look at what works and let's discuss some of the things that don't, but at least let's pass the things that work. No one's looking at that. I think it's ridiculous that we do that. So if somebody's got I'm concerned about what's effective, right? So if somebody's got a great idea, then I'm willing to listen. I will not compromise on certain things though. That's the bottom line. The thing that we're sworn to uphold and the document, the Constitution is what I'm talking about, that we're sworn to uphold, which policymakers seem to not care at all about the fact that they swore to uphold it, and principles. You had a question back here?
Yeah, and in dealing with the, in my estimation, broken machine of Washington, how do we institute a policy to get rid of the good old boy network and put term limits in place and restrict the 6-term congressman, the 36, 42-year senators? How do we break that cycle so that they do represent the people instead of representing their own agendas
Well,
over a period of time?
there's several things that you need to do. First of all, people need to show up. They need to show up like we did during caucus night. I have to tell you, I got goosebumps just watching the process. I've been going to my caucus night for years, and it's interesting. We want people to show up. The other thing is we have to be very careful when we make amendments to the Constitution. I'm just putting it out there right now, because we don't have a crystal ball to see what's going to take effect 50 years from now. If you look at the 14th Amendment, it's being used completely different than what it was meant to be used for. There are certain amendments that I believe that we are in dire straits, like balanced budget amendment, cap and balance. Those are the things that, we're in dire straits. We've got to put handcuffs on Washington and put the brakes on what they're doing and hold them accountable to that. But first of all, we need to show up, because when we show up, we can pull people out. The other thing also is that our policies, right now, we need to change our policy. I don't know that we have to make an amendment to the Constitution to try and change the policy. The policies right now make it so that the longer you're there, the more seniority you have. That policy, we need to look at changing some of that policy, because what happens is when you've got people that are staying there, we've got career politicians. Now you realize this is not something I said, that policy doesn't work for me. Because this is not, I'm not planning on dying in Washington. You have to understand, I've got a great life. I'm really happy here. The only thing that's pulling me away to go and deal with this situation that we have in Washington is that my 12-year-old daughter, when she has a family of her own, will owe $900,000 to get us out of this mess. $900,000. It's completely inappropriate and it's immoral.
I'm going to say something, about Orrin Hatch. I know he's the top guy and all that. I've gotten a lot of mail from Mitt Romney to really bring him in. But, and I was for term limits, but my next door neighbor said to me, and that really hit me over the head, is that it doesn't do good for us to do it. The whole country has to do time limits, not just Utah. We got rid of Bob Bennett. We got a new freshman in. If you don't have term limits for everybody, I'd say, okay, 2 or 3 or 4 times, and that's it. But right now, sure, he's been in for 36 years, but look who he's been under. He needs, right now, I'm praying that Mitt Romney will make it to presidency. And he really wants Orrin Hatch in there to be head of the finance committee, to make everything work smoothly. So it's nothing about just Utah. It has to be the whole country or not. We really need Orrin Hatch there right now, unless the whole country changes.
Okay, lots of questions.
How far would you be willing to put your neck out, so to speak, to hold people accountable when they are in violation of their oath of office?
Have you seen mothers lift up cars to pull their children out from under? Have you seen a bear try and protect her cubs? I mean, whatever happens, I'm a tough cookie. I have no problems putting people and holding them accountable. I mean, I've had to make some really tough decisions where I am. And I know that we're dealing with some entrenched, really tough people in Washington. But it threatens the ability for my children to be successful, to have an opportunity. I know they'll come at me. I mean, I know. You're going to see things, but it's up to you. You're going to see things, probably, I don't know if they're going to, who knows what they're going to do with the videos, whether they're going to cut them and say something else. I don't care. You know what I've said to you here. We're going to do whatever we need to do to make sure we get things done. But yes, they're going to come at me, and I'm ready for it. Bring it. Game on.
What would you say your competitive advantages are either like Sandstrom and McCollum, or as far as being Jim Matheson, or just as far as getting the job done in Congress?
Okay. Well, we talked a little bit about Jim Matheson and why I have an advantage. I'm a different type of candidate. He's never been up against a candidate like me before. So that's one. But in Washington, getting policy, I have the best chance of actually getting policy through. There's 435 members of the US House. We need somebody who's going to be able to break through the clutter, right? So one, I have already people helping me, and call it whatever you want to, but Paul Ryan says he's wanted me, he needs my help. He's actually helped out with the campaign a little bit. Eric Cantor has helped out. Kevin McCarthy has helped out. Peter Roskin has helped out. Everyone, and these are just a big group of people. We've got Alan West, we've got Martha Roby, we've got just, I mean, you're talking about House Majority Leadership, the youngest chairman of the Budgetary Committee, the Majority Whip, and the Deputy Whip. So they're saying, Mia, we need your help to change the face of the party. We need your help, and I'm going to help. That's what I'm going to go there to do. I am tired of being pegged as the anti-compassionate, anti-poor party, because we're not that. We are about not excluding Americans. We're about stepping out of the way and letting you go and get whatever opportunities you want or get whatever life you want. That's what's great about this country. I think we need to change that messaging. That's what's great about this country. You're not predestined to be poor here. If you've got a great idea and you're willing to take the right risks, then you can do well.
Teach a man, not give a man.
So, lots of questions. Yes, sir.
Hi, I have had some experience in dealing with Matheson, both in Washington DC in his office, meeting with him on certain issues, and also here locally, as I sat on the board of a nonprofit organization for about 7 years. And every time we would go and invite our Utah delegation, 3 conferences,